All right, let's jump right into some fascinating news out of Ethiopia. If you've been following along with the economic developments there, you know this is a big one. Independent Forex bureaus are a go.
Definitely a big shift for a country known for keeping a tight rein on its economy. We've got reports from both ENA and The Reporter, so two reliable Ethiopian news outlets, and they're both covering this announcement from the National Bank of Ethiopia.
And there are already some new players on the scene. Five, yes, you heard that right, five non-bank Forex bureaus have been given the green light by the NBE. We're talking about Dugda Fidelity Investment PLC, Ethio Independent Forex Bureau, Global Independent Forex Bureau, Robust Independent Forex Bureau.
It's a mouthful, isn't it? But more than that, it's actually quite telling. I mean, 3 out of those 5 have independent right there in their names.
I hadn't even noticed that.
I think that suggests we're seeing some new players, probably drawn by this loosening of regulations.
So it could signal a shift in the business landscape over there, maybe a move away from those established dominant players. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What can these new bureaus actually do? Are they completely free to do whatever they want with foreign exchange?
Not exactly. Think of it more like a learner's permit. They've got permission to buy and sell cash, but only cash in those major currencies.
So no major import-export deals or anything like that, at least not yet.
Right, no complex transactions just yet.
So more like easing into the fast lane, not a full-on freeway chase.
That's a good way to put it. But just like with someone who's just gotten their learner's permit, there are some rules they've got to follow. Like there are limits on how much you can exchange without getting hit with a customs declaration. And that magic number is $10,000 USD when you're buying.
$10,000, huh? That seems oddly specific. What happens if you walk in there with 10,001 dollars? Asking for a friend, of course.
Well, that extra dollar just earned your friend a bit of paperwork. Larger amounts usually come with those reporting requirements for financial institutions, all around the world. I think it's less about limiting what individuals can do and more about trying to keep things above board, making sure everything's in line with international efforts to curb things like money laundering.
So it's kind of a balancing act then. Encouraging economic activity, but making sure things don't get out of hand. What about if you're traveling? Are the rules different for travelers?
Yeah, definitely. For people exchanging money just for their personal use, the limit is lower, $5,000.
Makes sense.
But for business travelers, it's a bit higher, up to $10,000.
Still got to be mindful of those limits.
Oh, absolutely. And no matter what, always have your paperwork in order.
Passports ready, visas in check, receipts for every penny. Got it. It's interesting, though, this real push for transparency. Both those articles we mentioned, they both said these new bureaus are required to show everyone what their exchange rates are. And they have to give out receipts for all transactions, no matter what.
Right. It's essential, especially since this is a market that's just getting going.
It's brand new.
Having those clear rules, that transparency, it's crucial for building trust. Not just for everyday people in Ethiopia who are just trying to exchange some money. But you have to think about foreign investors, too. They're watching all of this very closely.
It's like sending a message, a signal, that Ethiopia is serious about having a stable and reliable financial system.
Exactly. It shows they are ready to play by the rules, be a reliable partner on the world stage. And speaking of which, the National Bank of Ethiopia, they seem pretty optimistic about this whole thing. In their official statement, they even called it a new chapter. What do you think about that as an expert? Does that sound right to you?
New chapter does sound promising, like they're moving forward, ready to embrace some change. But are there any potential downsides here? I mean, this kind of liberalization, it's got to come with some risks too, right?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? While it's definitely positive, it's not without its challenges. One concern is making sure that all these new bureaus, they're actually operating ethically and efficiently. There's always the risk of things like, money laundering, especially when you have a market that's just opened up like this one.
So it's not enough to just open the doors. You have to make sure the house is in order, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's about finding that balance, opportunity and oversight. The National Bank of Ethiopia, they'll really need to be on top of this, monitoring these new bureaus, enforcing those regulations, making sure everything is running smoothly and fairly. And if it's not, they'll need to adapt those regulations as they go.
Vigilance is key. I want to shift gears a bit, talk big picture now. We've talked about who these Forex bureaus are, how they work, all of that. But let's talk about the why. Why is Ethiopia doing this now? Why move towards a more open financial system?
It really boils down to economics. Ethiopia has so much potential for growth. But to achieve that growth, they need to attract foreign investment. And to do that, well, It has to be easier for money, for foreign currency to flow in and out of the country.
So this move to a more open foreign exchange market, it's really all about making Ethiopia a more attractive place to invest.
Exactly. A more accessible, more transparent foreign exchange market, it makes investors feel more confident. It shows them that Ethiopia is open for business, that it's ready and willing to engage with the global economy. But it's not just about attracting money from outside. This could also have a big impact on everyday people in Ethiopia.
That's what I was just thinking. How does this affect the average person in Ethiopia, someone who's not involved in big international business deals?
Well, for one thing, it could mean greater access to foreign currency. Think about it. Being able to easily exchange your Ethiopian birr for US dollars, for example, or euros if you need to buy something from abroad, maybe goods or services.
That makes a lot of sense.
And when you have that kind of increased access, it can lead to more competitive exchange rates. And that is always a good thing for
It's
consumers.
like opening up a world of options for people. But I have to ask, with a big change like this, what happens to the value of the birr itself? Could this make it stronger or could it weaken it?
That's a really important question, and you can bet economists are going to be watching it very closely. It all comes down to supply and demand. So if there's a big surge in demand for foreign currency because of this liberalization, yeah, that could put some downward pressure on the burr. But on the flip side, if this attracts a lot of foreign investment and gives a boost to exports, well, that could increase demand for the burr, and that would likely mean a stronger burr.
So it's a bit of a balancing act trying to find that sweet spot for a healthy economy.
Exactly. And, this isn't just happening in Ethiopia. This whole thing, this move towards a more liberalized approach to foreign exchange, it's part of a much bigger global trend. A lot of countries, especially those with economies that are still developing, they're starting to see that opening up their financial systems can really be a powerful way to fuel growth.
So even though we're zeroing in on Ethiopia today, this story has implications far beyond their borders.
Without a doubt, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Ethiopia's move here, their decision to do this, it could inspire similar reforms in other countries that have those really tightly controlled financial systems. It's like a ripple effect. One country takes the leap, embraces liberalization, and it can influence so many others. It starts to reshape the global economy in a way.
That's pretty amazing to think about.
Yeah.
So we might not be booking our flights to Ethiopia just yet, but understanding this shift in their financial policy, it gives us this really interesting window into the bigger forces that are shaping how the global economy works.
Exactly. And it shows just how interconnected the world really is, especially when it comes to finance.
It definitely gives us a lot to think about. So, for everyone listening, here's something to chew on. Let's say this liberalization in Ethiopia, let's say it's a success. What other industries in Ethiopia might see some growth, some new investments in the years to come? It's something to ponder. This has been a fascinating look at Ethiopia's currency and what it means for the rest of the world. Thanks for joining us as we explored this new phase in their economic journey. Until next time, keep those questions coming, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.